And John Basten from the Midstate Group joins us in the studio. Hi, John.
Good morning. Good to be here.
It's great to see you. You saw Red Notice. You liked it. Enjoyed it with your family.
Saw it with my girls last night. And, of course, Dwayne Johnson and Gal Gadot and Ryan Reynolds. You can't beat that matchup. And it was on Netflix, so it was free.
Didn't have to go to the
movie theaters and spend $100 on popcorn.
Yeah, exactly. Now, and you also wanted to give a shout-out to Mustaches for Kids.
Yeah, very proud of our community. We've got so much going on that's depressing. Not only do we have all these government mandates coming our way that we'll discuss here shortly, but it's cold, leaves are falling off the trees. It's really just depressing. So it's amazing to hear that these corporations that are being subjected to all of this mandates that are really rising to the occasion to help our community, especially the kids. And so Mustaches for Kids has been around for a couple years now. Chris Boswell has done an amazing job leading that team. And last week, they're up to $195,000.
Wow.
200 plus growers. And so regardless of what's going on with COVID, we're not being beaten down. The community is really rising. You've got organizations like Lynchburg Ready Mix who matched dollar for dollar. And that really prompted a lot of people out there to get out there and give. Dave Basten at Yorktown Investments, $7,000 just last week alone. He really wanted to make sure Lynchburg Ready Mix put their dollars on the table, and they really did. And
any relation?
Yeah, my cousin.
Okay.
And so you got 4 other companies that are getting ready to do some matching too. So regardless of COVID and these mandates, companies in this town are really rising to the occasion. So it's great to see.
Now, did you know that Brian is participating?
Yeah, I wasn't going to say anything. I'm trying not to look his way.
Don't stare directly at him at the stash.
My eyes are already bleeding because of reading all of these government regulations. And because we're on the radio, I brought visual aid. So, we got lots of trees that have died in the process.
John, we only have about 10 minutes to talk to you about these regulations, and we're not going to have a time to get to even a couple of pages. I mean, John has brought in a stack that's about 4 inches high.
Yeah, when the government reacts, I mean, they really like to kill trees. They're trying to justify all of these people that they're employing to help us. Isn't this wonderful?
So, what companies are thinking about now, large or small, are these COVID mandates, and there are 5 different mandates surrounding COVID, and the question is which ones apply to which companies?
Yeah, because there's going to be at least one that applies, and then this is what's so confusing because even between the mandates there are inconsistencies. The government can't seem to get their teams together and agree on what should be done. So you got 5 different mandates out there, and it's just a matter of really kind of going through and seeing what applies to you. So we kind of start at the very top. Do you have a government contract? Are you a federal contractor? If yes, then you do actually have a vaccination mandate. There are 2 vaccination mandates. There are 3 that really are not. And so I've talked to 3 manufacturers just here in Lynchburg the other day, and they're concerned because half of their workforce is not vaccinated, and they will have to shut down if they try to enforce this. They've already been told by their employees, and it's already a tight labor market as it is. So what are you going to do? And so it's really damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you don't get the vaccination, you could close. If you even do the testing on the 100-plus mandate, that's going to be a logistical nightmare. And so really start at the federal contracting level. If you're not a federal contractor, okay, that doesn't apply.
And one more thing about the federal contractor level, they have to be vaccinated.
Have to be vaccinated.
Yeah,
that's a good question. So January 4th, and that's one of the things that there's all these mandates, and they've extended the federal contracting mandate. It was, I think, December 8th. Mm-hmm. They just expanded it, or extended it, I should say, into July 4th to coincide with January 4th to coincide with the other mandates.
And is there an exception for you have to be tested, and that's
Well, that's the 100 plus, and that's the confusing. There's so many different mandates. So many people are spouting different things that really are applying or not applying, depending on who you are. So the confusing thing about the federal contractor is they really say in the regulations that you really shouldn't even fire someone. You should really go through a different process of following your policies and procedures. Don't follow them yet. Don't even put them on administrative leave. They're actually saying in the mandate that you should give your employees counseling and education, which is kind of interesting that they want you to give your employees counseling if they don't get the vaccine.
So is it really a mandate?
Well, eventually they'll give you the ability to counsel and educate your employees for a limited time. It doesn't really specify how much time, but you have limited time to counsel them or give them counseling. And so if that doesn't apply, though, then we have to ask, do you accept Medicare and Medicaid? And there are a lot of different businesses that do that. We have nonprofits in town that are accepting Medicaid. They're doing child therapy, speech therapy. We have nonprofits that are giving people with disabilities kind of a daycare center, but they're also giving therapies to help them. Well, they accept Medicare and Medicaid. Well, they're going to have to vaccinate 100% of their employees unless there is a legal exemption. And if they don't, they can get civil fines or they can get terminated on their Medicare and Medicaid contract. So if you're not getting those kind of Medicare, Medicaid funds, then the question is, okay, are you a healthcare? Because then there's a whole emergency temporary standard that was put into effect in July of this year. Now, that one is a real doozy because there are some mandates in that if your employees get COVID underneath that, you've got to pay them $1,400 a week while they're out. The other mandates don't specify that. But if you're a healthcare provider, you're already on the front lines trying to help your community. And if you get COVID, then you're going to have to pay these workers while they're out. So there is some exemptions there to answer your question. There is an exemption there. If you are a non-hospital ambulatory facility and you do screenings for everyone that comes into your facility. So if you go to a lot of these physician offices right now, they do a lot of screening. They do a temperature check. They ask you a series of questions about symptoms. And if you fail that test, so to speak, then you're not allowed in. If you do that, then you don't have to follow the emergency temporary standard for the healthcare industry. And a lot of our local physician offices do not have to follow this mandate because of this exemption. Now, if you're a hospital or a long-term care facility, then you do. And there's a list that the government gives you of whether or not you have to comply with this or not. So if you're not a healthcare provider that meets that definition, then we ask, do you have 100 plus? If you have 100 plus, then the OSHA mandate that was just put into effect or released November 4th that takes effect January 4th does apply to you. Now, that is not, according to the government, this is not my opinion here, not according to OSHA, this is not a vaccination mandate because they give you a choice. And this is a logistical nightmare for employers. If you have 100 plus, then you must either have a policy mandating the vaccine or you conduct weekly testing. You must test all unvaccinated employees once every 7 days. And this is the confusion because the Virginia law says that employees must not pay for their testing because it's a medical examination. The federal law says they want the employees to pay for it.
Yeah, that's because they're trying to push them to get the vaccine rather than to be tested because the vaccine will cost you nothing, but the employer can charge you for the test, which someone told us a lot. We were talking this before, a week or two ago. It's like about $50 a throw, or maybe $100.
Yeah, I was thinking. I was being told in certain instances it can be up to $120. So whether it's say 50, 60, all the way up to 120 employees, we're dealing with inflation right now. We're dealing with a lot of pressures, and now we're going to make employees pay for weekly testing.
Well, that's the one that's been held up by the courts, right? The 100 plus employees. The courts have put a stop to that, at least for now.
And that's the confusion. So in the federal contractor area, there were some lawsuits. Now, they have been declined. So the government has a lot of leeway and authority to put in their contracts what they want you to do. And so lawyers across the country are saying that's probably going to stay. But then you have the CMS, the Centers of Medicare and Medicaid, and the 100 plus emergency temporary standard. Basically, the lawsuits right now are in the 5th District Court. That was stayed, or there was an injunction. Now, what you see is there's a lot of other lawsuits being filed across the country by labor unions because what they want now is the lottery. You've got the 11th District Court, the 7th District Court, the 8th District Court, 9th District Court all has courts, and they say, hey, we can only have one. We can only have one lawsuit. So what they're going to do is combine them all into one, and there's going to be a lottery to determine which district court is going to take this case on and then possibly go all the way up to the Supreme Court. So right now, that there is an injunction. But here's the thing. You don't want to be caught with your pants down, that if for some reason this is upheld, that you're not prepared, because there is a lot of planning that needs to be done. And I kind of look at it this way. We do hurricane planning. We do disaster planning at the workplace, and we hope we never have to implement it. So let's consider this a catastrophe waiting to happen, and we're just going to plan ahead of time so that we're prepared if the courts aren't successful in a permanent injunction or taking this out.
We're speaking with John Basten, the Midstate Group. Wow. So the 5 mandates, and federal contractors, if you accept Medicaid and Medicare, if you're a healthcare provider, if you have 100+ employees, which one am I missing?
And then the last one is, hey, you've got the Virginia law. Remember, we were the first state in the union to implement an emergency temporary standard for COVID. That was back in July of 2020, became permanent in January 2021, and then we had an update to that in October. It was October 8th of this year. And actually, as of November 7th, you were supposed to have completed your employee training. So that one is the catch-all. And if all of the other federal laws don't apply to you, then Virginia has their own law in place that then takes precedent if nothing else does. And that is not a vaccination mandate. You do not have to get vaccinated, but you do have to have certain policies for those who are vaccinated versus those who are not vaccinated.
And then there's confusion over who pays for what. In Virginia, they're trying to keep employees from having to pay for testing, whereas the federal law is trying to make employees pay for it. So it's very confusing. All of these COVID-related mandates, not all of them have to do exactly with the vaccine.
Well, and add a little bit more confusion is the state manages their own state OSHA plan. They manage it themselves. So the state of Virginia has 15 days from the date of publication of the OSHA standards or regulations. They got 15 days to respond of how they're going to comply with the federal regulations. They have to determine, hey, are we at least meeting the regulations? Hey, we're at least at the minimum already meeting those, or hey, we're deficient in these areas and we're going to have to bring our regulations up to the minimum standard of the federal government. So they got 15 days. So that 15 days is almost up. So it'll be interesting because we do have a Democratic governor. I have a feeling nothing's going to change right now, but that's what's going to happen when Youngkin gets in. So there's a lot of
just uncertainty
of what do you do. I just say, let's plan now. And here's the thing for small businesses and medium-sized businesses that are in Virginia. We've known about these laws and regulations in Virginia for over a year. Most of you are already complying. There's just a couple of things that need to be updated, and you're probably 99% there. Now, the state of Virginia says, hey, if you're showing a good faith effort in complying, then we're not going to bother you. If you're showing a good faith effort, if you're following CDC guidelines, then we're going to leave you alone. The problem is, if you are not in compliance, Virginia is already fining people up to $13,600. So they have some teeth into this. Our safety teams are already seeing fines and penalties being assessed to Virginia corporations. So it's something that you might already be in compliance. Just call us. We can give you a quick assessment, let you see, are your policies in place? Is your documentation? And that's the key thing. Please document. The government, you're guilty until proven innocent, and that's why documentation is essential. Get it in writing, every single thing.
So John Basten and his team at the Midstate Group can help you help explain the policies and determine if you have everything in place, as confusing as it is.
Yeah, we'll help you go through this. We have HR teams, safety teams that can help navigate this mess.
Wow. And it's, as we've heard, it's not just for the businesses with 100+ employees. This is for the small businesses as well.
If you've got 2 or more employees. So with Virginia Ocean, they specifically say in their regulations, it's all employers within the Commonwealth.
So, John, contact information. I know it's themidstategroup.com is a good place to start.
You can reach us at info@midstatesafety.com. You can always reach us 528-1001. But more importantly, make sure you support Mustaches for Kids. This pandemic's going to probably rage on, but we need to still be there for our children. And so please do what you can to support the cause.
There you go, m4klynchburg.org.
Yeah.
Brian's got the mustache going. Biscuit has the mustache going.
Please give money so they will shave this soon.
I know. It's hard to look at, isn't it, John? So, John, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.